So then we are back with the more understanding from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we study then the Holy Quran and also the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of then the prophets of Yitzhayelic lineage, the younger brother of Ishmael. In these days where we find ourselves then during the time of restoration and reduction, then it's very valid for us to study very diligently the Quran, make sure we understand what it means, and being diligent, as the younger brother of Ishmael has mentioned, go through the entire scripture and search very diligently, so then we can understand the times and the seasons, and also the development of the events, or the set of the events coming in the near future. So in terms of then the revelation or Galah from the viewpoint of the Ishmaelic lineage, we find then in Shura al-Baina a section of it related with the time of the end, and then also revelation. It is wording a bit distinct, and this is what we should then evaluate, what then should be the task of the Ishmaelites versus what should be the task of the Yitzhayelites, or then the Yitzhayelic lineage. The Ishmaelites, we understand, they were already in charge during the time of Joseph when he was in Egypt. Then obviously he was sold into slavery, into Pharaoh's service via the Ishmaelites, because the brothers of Joseph sold him to slavery, and there was a caravan of the descendants of Ishmael coming through and giving us already the understanding of those people in charge of trade in the part of the world where we understand then from where Joseph came from. So then from the Quran we observe then very interestingly, and it stated, containing proper scripture, nor were the people of the scripture divided until after the clear understanding came unto them. So we already established the understanding of the Quran from then Ibrahim and Ishmael, where a person has the understanding. Clear understanding came unto them. Isn't that interesting? The way then the Quran understands the spiritual understandings. Many areas of the Quran, when you study, mentions until after the clear understanding came unto them. Speaks of time and the seasons, understanding. And they are ordered not else than to serve Allah, obviously maintaining then the religion pure for him as man by nature upright, and establish worship, and to pay then those who are entrusted with obviously those outside. So then kind of interesting, and establish worship, very important. And then those who disbelieve among the people of the scripture and the idolaters wilt abide in a fire that burns forever. Gives us already then the understanding of judgment. They are the worst of the created beings, and lo, those who believe and do properly works are the best of the created beings. They reward with then the Creator, then the Garden of Eden underneath, and then flows then obviously the water, wherein they inhabit forever. And Allah had pleasure in them, and they have pleasure in Him. This is then in the store, or then set aside for him who then obviously believe Allah. So very interesting. It has a very high understanding of the spiritual section of the scripture when these understandings are given. And that's why the Quran is so interesting, because nor were the people of the scripture divided until after the clear understanding came upon them. So then they understand the scripture as then the Creator directly had then Abraham or then Ibrahim do what we then understand he should be doing with his first son. This implicates a direct conversation with the Creator and Ibrahim. So then, when you begin to read the instructions from the Quran, you find then, until after the clear understanding came upon them, and those who were then enlightened, and those then who did understand the plan of Allah. So you begin your quest, those who then were given. And when you trace back this giving of understanding, you trace back of Ibrahim and then the Creator speaking directly to him. There is no other interpretation of it, because only the Creator can give these understandings. So it's a very interesting part. However, there is a section of it where we should then understand the tasks of the sons. There was the first son. He had a particular task. In other words, he had an objective for his life. And from the Quran, we understand Ibrahim had a direct relation with the Creator. Absolutely direct. It was obviously via dreams where he had visions of understandings. It must be, otherwise you can't have the understandings. And since we do have the record of then the angels showing up during the time where then Ibrahim had these visions while he was in a dream, then further, when you begin to develop your understanding of then the relationship of the Creator and the descendants of Ishmael, you begin to understand the way then the Creator reveals himself to them. And the teachings started with Ibrahim, because never changed. You can't establish a solid relationship with Ibrahim and the first son and then later then trying to go around and then making up other types of relationships then outside of the first understanding. So then the establishment of the relationship of the Creator and then the descendants of Ishmael was then given from Ibrahim and Ishmael. If we study this relationship very diligently, then we are enlightened, or then we are given the understanding. And this is what the Quran mentions over and over again if you read. They are not speaking of any kind of a ritual. They are not speaking of any kind of specific sacrificial understanding when related with the Spirit. They are simply given what then Ibrahim received from the Creator, and then Ibrahim gave his son. So let's try to reread these. And then Shura al-Ba'ina, 3rd verse, nor were the people of the Scripture divided until after the clear understanding came upon them. Clear understanding. Where do we get this clear understanding? Because we can't do more than what Ibrahim received from the Creator and gave to Ishmael. Otherwise, we would say whatsoever the Creator spoke with Ibrahim wasn't enough. And then he had to give other people more because he was not endowed with enough. And we understand then the objective of Ishmael was to become stationary and being the leaders of this world's Gentile system. So then when we read the time of restoration, we then wash ourselves clean from the Israelic lies. Those concocted stories, junky scripture, twisted Torah, twisted instructions. And then we clear ourselves to those junks, because they're simply junks. We find, for instance, Moshe never had invoked the 10 plagues. There were never 10 plagues. The shoes of then the people walking in the desert. Some people, they were walking for 40 years in the desert. Duh. What stupid, you don't read the scripture diligently. Where did they find on the land of Israel then over there? Many thousands of stones with a carved image of sandals. Obviously those sandal design on the rocks would never wear away. Were the shoes that they were using that never were worn out? Come on, don't be stupid. You have to understand the context. But then, people believe this counterlies Scripture. Then when we clean ourselves from this junky Israelic crap from the instructions, then we understand. Then those enlightened. So then we begin our quest from the Quran, obviously, because it's the first son of Ibrahim. We must humble ourselves before these understandings, so then we understand the leadership of the time of the end regarding Gentile level. And when we submit, we do our work, as then the younger brother of Ishmael said, give to the government what belongs to the government. Give to the Creator what belongs to Him. Because the younger brother, his task and his objective is then tabernacling. That's the task of the Yitzhayelic lineage. They have a specific objective, a specific purpose. In terms of the leadership of the Gentile level, those belong to the elderly brother. Because we are speaking of birthright. And either of them should never impose upon each other, because the Creator, He has a specific task then for the first son and the second son. But then, for instance, in the Quran, there is a very important section of it, because they briefly outline revelation. And they said, their reward is with the Creator. Then, obviously, speaking of the Garden of Eden and the waters flowing from it, where then he speaks the word then inhabiting. Inhabit. So we understand this brief explanation truly is not part of the objective of the first son. Though the first son is aware of. That's why they outlined. They have an idea of the objective of the younger brother. But they don't expound very much, because it's not their objective. They are only indicating for us that they acknowledge that there is then the younger brother receiving then these understandings, and then the first brother not unaware of it. So then we establish a proper relationship as we then watch the developments of this time of restoration and reduction per order. Then we acknowledge the first son has the birthright. His objective is directing the world. The Gentile level, this is the way it is. And then the younger son, the objective is tabernacling. So then, what the Quran is explaining then is those inhabiting forever, they are making a reference of then from the lineage of Yitzhak, from the prophet Yirmiyahu. They understand this prophecy. But since they are not the second son, they simply outlined for us. So then when we read the Quran, we can understand they have this knowledge. It's not expounded, but they have the knowledge of it. So we then become enlightened. But then the objective of those other than the lineage of the sons, it is work. We do the work because the Messiah said, give the government what belongs to the government. Because the Messiah, he was brought before the authorities of his time, secular authorities. And the Messiah had to recognize that there was an authority of this earth and his government, where he was at, secular government. And the first situation came out of his mouth was, give to the government what belongs to them. In other words, they were expecting people to pay taxes. So, those of us not from the Ishmaelic lineage or then the Yitzhak lineage, our objective is work. And then as we are enlightened, then we do our tasks after. We are then through the tests to do the testimony or the galaying or revealing, simply revealing, speaking of these understandings. Not to try to make money with it, not to try to make a ministry out of it. And then when the Creator then, he gives the okay for this person to do then the testifying or the testimony, then a person must be very circumspect of the fact of completing the duty as a person working, paying taxes. And with the rest of the time doing the testifying, the galaying or revealing. So then we have a very nice balanced understanding of what's coming in the future. In terms of other countries, was explained before, when the Chinese system then is implemented very shortly, in 36 months time, we should have very strong indications of then the unifying of systems, as we already have the evidence from Bank of China and the Citigroup. They are already lining up themselves. And there is no other country that's going to take the lead. There is no more leading country. What we have is then the sons of Ishmael doing their objective. And then the sons of Yitzhak doing their objective. And the rest of us acquainted of what's coming. So then, there are many areas of the Quran that we should be very diligently studying it and understanding. Their objective is not to teach tabernacling. So when we detect this understanding is for our recognition that the first brother was aware of it, but it's not his task. The task was given to the second son. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.